There is a moment near the end of The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance where the newspaper editor says something that not only defines the film, but perhaps the entire American Western genre.
Well, you're not going to use the story, Mr. Scott?
No, sir. This is the West, sir. When the legend becomes fact, print the legend.
He's right, Vance.
It's a line about memory, about history, and about the stories nations tell about themselves in order to exist. Because the American Western was never just a genre, it was a myth. A way of understanding national identity through images that felt eternal. The cowboy, the outlaw, the frontier. A vast, open landscape where freedom wasn't given, but taken. These stories don't just reflect American values, they created them. They turned abstract ideas like liberty, freedom, and moral order into something physical, something that could be seen, and more importantly, something that could be believed. At its core, the Western is built on a contradiction, the tension between liberty and freedom. Liberty exists in structure, in law, in the promise of civilization. Freedom exists in the individual, outside of those structures, untamed, unregulated. And somewhere between them is moral order. Not something fixed, but something negotiated, often through violence. Anthropologist Claude Levi-Strauss argued that myths are built on oppositions like these, binary forces that define each other. And the Western gives those oppositions a face. The cowboy, a man who exists between two worlds, he lives outside the law but defends it. He uses violence but in the name of peace. He doesn't belong to civilization, but he makes it possible. In this way, the Western becomes the story of America, a nation born out of wilderness, defined by the belief that an order could be created from chaos. John Ford's The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance arrives at the moment when the myth is no longer forming but is solidified. The film follows Ransom Stoddard, a lawyer, a man who believes in the law, and Tom Donovan, a cowboy, a man who believes in something older than the law. They represent two versions of America, liberty and freedom, structure and individualism. When Stoddard is forced into a gunfight with the outlaw Liberty Valance, he becomes part of the myth himself. He kills the outlaw. He becomes a hero. But the truth is revealed that he didn't in fact kill him. Tom Donovan did. The myth is born in that moment, not from truth, but from necessity. Because the nation needs the story more than it needs the reality, the legend becomes the foundation for the future. But what happens when that foundation begins to crack? Paul Thomas Anderson's One Battle After Another exists on the other side of that question. It takes place in an America where the frontier is gone. There is nowhere left to expand. Only borders, systems, conflict. The 2025 film follows Bob Ferguson, a former revolutionary searching for his daughter. He moves through a world defined not by freedom but by control. Here, liberty has become something that is imposed. Freedom has become something restricted, and moral order can no longer feel stable. The imagery from the Western is still there, the desert, the standoff, the lone figure moving through an unforgiving landscape. But the meaning has changed. These rituals no longer create heroes. They reveal an absence in America itself. The expected confrontation never resolves the story. The myth refuses to complete itself. Because the film understands something essential. The Western was never just about what America was. It was about what America believed itself to be. In One Battle After Another, that belief is gone. What remains is the structure. But without the myth, the structure feels empty, meaningless. Where Ford's film shows how myth creates identity, Anderson's film shows what happens when that identity begins to dissolve. Together they form a kind of conversation across time. One builds the legend, and the other questions whether it was ever really real in the first place. Because myths don't disappear all at once. They erode over time, slowly, until all that remains are the rituals, the images, the stories, and the quiet understanding that somewhere along the way, the legend stopped being true. Or maybe it was a lie all along.